automate stuff that are really irritating that happen over and over again. If it doesn't happen that often, don't automate it, especially when you're dealing with that's why RAID's complicated, because RAID's pretty automated for the most part, and it's complicated. So things that are complicated and that are automated are bad unless they're extremely well understood. But anyway, I think I'm...
One last question.
Yeah.
What statistics do you keep on what people look for?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Simple answer is not much. Brewster's privacy is really important to Brewster, and we have a document retention policy at the archive, which basically is like shred it after some period of time, just because we don't want it. But we do have some pretty good idea of like a whole lot of Japanese people love the Wayback Machine. So we know certain groups of people look for certain stuff.
Certain cultural things,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it's like, all right, that's whatever. I mean, but we don't keep like, hey, look, IP address at 12 a.m. looked at,
Yeah. Okay.
And so, but we do, this interesting. There's this concept of batting averages, and we call them batting averages. If you look at like the some of the collections, like the books, a lot of the movies. People get online and they do reviews. Hey, this is a great movie. This is great da-da-da, and they talk. There's a forum on there. And we do keep stats on how often things are looked at and very popular content. We kind of let people know, hey, people really like this. And so we do a lot of statistical analysis on the collections. And there's some neat algorithms that have come out of Amherst, actually. Some research done at Amherst. On how to figure out if something's popular. I mean, for example, if you have a top 5 list, these are the top 5 most interesting whatevers, they're probably going to stay up there forever because people go, oh, I want to look at those. And then you're like, oh, I guess it's still popular. So how do you solve that problem? There's algorithms you can use to sort of lessen the effects of artificial popularity. So we've experimented with those quite a bit. Because there's so many cool things in the archive, and we just want to make sure that everyone looks at them. And so, yes, there's some interesting research in that area.
How many employees do you have, and where's your funding, and how are you paying for this?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a budget of about $4 million a year, and all of it comes from private. Some of it comes from public foundations. Grants. A lot of that is from a foundation developed by Brewster himself. And we're trying to get more and more government grants, public money to come in to expand the cache. Most of our money goes to people. We've got, right now we have about a dozen full-time employees. And then this last summer we had a dozen interns as well. And so it's kind of fluctuates, but it's a very small organization. Very small organization.
Any, thought or consideration of partnering with public libraries?
We work a lot with the Library of Congress. We have a very close relationship with them, very good relationship with them. Most other, at least in the U.S., we partner with like the UK, France, a lot of their government libraries we've been working closely with. But for the most, it's interesting, the librarians and the archivists philosophically don't get along real well, which is odd, because I think people that aren't involved in that kind of think, whatever, they're those guys that deal with old stuff and books, and they're the same people. But they actually see themselves as very, very different, and so they don't get along real well. I'm not an archivist or a librarian, so I can't tell you why. But philosophically, there's a little bit of head-butting there, so it's very difficult. It's a delicate diplomatic process that needs to go through to get stuff to archive out of those libraries. So working with libraries is tricky, very tricky. Some of our hardest obstacles, most difficult obstacles, are librarian-oriented. So, yeah.
Well, there's two things that all the search engines have to have is nowadays is what is the click-through 5 cents a name to get on the top picks on the search results. But so you're you're unencumbered with that
Right.
aspect. But the other one is all the search engines kind of have like an ontology index, head leading subject categories. Do you have anything like that on yours? Or structure?
Well, with Recall, the Recall search engine, Anna sort of applied some heuristics to that. There's a little bit of information that she's made available from links from the Recall website about how she does it. She's actually very open. You can actually email her and say, hey, how do you do this? Very open about it. In the archive, the Wayback Machine, though, that give us a URL and we'll give you the stuff. There's no ranking or summary there, but certainly with the Recall search engine, it's very similar to a traditional one, so it has to figure all that stuff out. There is some personalization as well in the Recall search engine. For instance, if you look for, if your first search is for the White House and your second search is for China, it'll basically think, oh, maybe you want to look for the China in the White House, the dinnerware, instead of thinking you want to go to the country, right? It can figure out, based on the last 3 searches you did, I think I'm getting to know you. So the Recall search engine, and in the search business, this is known as personalization, and there's several startups running around touting personalization as the next big thing. And so you'll probably be hearing more about personalized web searching in the future.
Carl Mallet.
What's it?
Carl Mallet in that group?
I'm not familiar with his work.
Okay. He was doing search engines that had geographical locations. So
Oh.
if you were looking for something, he would give you near you.
Oh, that's kind of neat. That's neat. Yeah, these are there's one group in particular out of Stanford. Stanford, the search engine, the search people in Stanford, the PhD program there, pretty much they're a funnel for Google. That's just kind of where you go.
What a shot.
There's some rogue researchers that aren't going to Google
Uh-oh.
that are they're
You're
involved.
Dr. Anna, eh?
They're not to Anna, but they're involved in some work in this area too. And of course, Microsoft's working away on their search engine as well, and so it's going to be a lot of fun in the next few years here to see what comes out of that. But personalization, I think, will be definitely one of those things that will be a differentiator.
Great.
So.
Josh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We have a little recognition for the
that's
effort
fine.
people put forth in these things, so thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much. I enjoyed it.
We learned a lot about the archives, and it's another one of these conversations I want to have go on for a long time, talk about how to do search engines and things like that. Pete Parks. Okay. Pete had something he was going to talk about. We want to point out that there is a Twiki on the Internet Developer Group. If you're interested in that, you can come down and try that out. And I am thinking